Good morning, everyone, and welcome. How we doing? How we doing? Welcome to the last pre-market prep session of August, 8/31/2023. Good morning to Treese, Michelle, Paul, Alicia, Carla. Great morning to all you guys. Greetings, 1,000 blessings. I'm excited to get through what we got going on today. We got sunlight peeking through. I had those curtains literally taped shut because sunlight just comes in here so vibrantly, but I won't look down on it, right? The Lord shining on us today. Speaking of being shined on, right? We can shine the light on ourselves and illuminate our future, right? Illuminate our destiny by getting 1% better. And that's what we try and do here each and every day during this session. So we're here to invest in ourselves. It's the best investment you will ever make, right? Being aware of the news, notes, information, trade ideas, and just knowing how to take advantage of that information. Again, there's a difference between information and wisdom. Wisdom is the application of information. We live in an age where, again, we are drowning in information and starving for wisdom. So it's important that you don't just get the information, right? It's cool to be here every day and hang out with us, but you want to be applying that information in order to make you money. That is the end all be all. This isn't a social club. You want to be getting this info, taking this info, and then making decisions based on that allow you to bridge the gap between who you are now and who you want to be, right? Who you are destined to be. So the application, right, is the most important portion, the most important portion of what was set up for you. So make sure you're seizing that yourself and not just, kind of letting the information go in one ear and out of the other. Throw a 3 in the chat if that makes sense. And if you're excited to get into what we have going on today, YouTube wanted to be nice and cooperative this morning after we had, kind of slew of crazy events yesterday morning. So I'm happy to, make today a great day. You have days where it seems like everything's just plotting against you, but you got to push through, come back out the other side, right, and come ready to execute. And that's exactly what we are today. So our top news here, like a hurricane, Idalia has come and gone with heavy rainfall, winds, flooding, and local residents continuing to assess the damage. It made landfall Wednesday morning on the Gulf Coast of Florida as a Category 3, but the hurricane was downgraded to a tropical storm as it crossed Georgia and the Carolinas. The eye of the storm is now going back out to sea, but by the look of related stocks, Idalia appears to have thankfully caused much less destruction than initially feared. On the move, Allstate, ticker ALL, ALL, rose 3.4% on Wednesday, along with other insurers like Progressive, Renaissance RE, and Universal Insurance Holdings, all of which are publicly traded, with claims not expected to be as bad as previously forecast. Meanwhile, backup generator player Generac, ticker GNRC, which can see outsized trading activity from adverse weather events, fell back following a run-up over the past few sessions. So that's just something that can happen, right, with these, weather events and speculative tickers. They can run up, they can run down, right, over the course of these news-induced moves. Home Depot and Lowe's also traded mildly higher, but no major jumps were seen as homeowners look to rebuild in the aftermath of a hurricane. Not gonna lie, I did see, a few places where there were homes that were flooded and stuff underwater. So it wasn't as bad, I guess, as what people were expecting it to be. But unfortunately, a few people did still have to suffer significant property damage. So prayers up to those people as always. Sending out good vibes. If you have the ability and the connections, even sending out monetary support, you can do that. And you feel led to do that. But yeah, living along, the southern, kind of coast, it's always something you run the risk of. It's one of the reasons why I never quite get tired of living in Maryland, right? It's like you don't really have to deal with the major weather events, and I'm fine with that. You go to Florida, I'm like, oh man, I'd love to live in Florida. And then, you see videos of people's houses under your water, and you're like, man, I love that I live in Maryland, In terms of news elsewhere, Duke Energy in Florida aimed to have the power of 95% of impacted customers restored by Wednesday night. And so far, 135,000 homes and businesses are back online. Next Era Energy, ticker NEE, which owns Florida Power and Light Company, America's largest electric utility, is also on watch. In terms of air travel, the Tampa and Tallahassee international airports said they expected to resume full operations today, which is good news for carriers like Southwest, Delta, and American Airlines. Good news since I'm flying out tomorrow, right? Definitely good news that the hurricane has gone back out to sea, and that, hopefully all this flight stuff is back on, back on the up and up. Let's see here what else we got going on. So in terms of media, no end in sight. Things are getting rocky over in Hollywood. Reports suggest that a high-profile meeting between Amazon Studios, whose ticker is just Amazon AMZN, Disney, Netflix, Universal, and Warner Bros. Discovery will take place today amid divisions over how to proceed to end strikes by writers and actors, which are now in day 122 and 49, respectively. Failing to resolve the issues may lead to, quote, devastating effects if it is not settled soon, according to Barry Diller, former CEO of Paramount Pictures and founder of the Fox Broadcasting Company, and could potentially, quote, produce an absolute collapse of an entire industry. Yeah, I mean, at this point, like things are getting very, very scary in Hollywood. For strikes to happen this long, it completely just messes up the timeline of all these other movies, the production, everything. So they're going to have to come to some sort of resolution soon. And they're all getting together, right? All the kind of major bigwigs in the industry and saying, okay, what are we going to do about this? Because they do recognize that, like they have to use AI moving forward. They have to, but how are they going to balance that with the current humans that they have employed? That's the big thing. And to be honest, again, like it sucks from the standpoint of like the media being created, right? You want to have your movies come out and have them come out on time, but it's still an issue. When you talk about like people taking a stand and when is the time to do it, oftentimes people take a stand way too late. And Hollywood is actually on point with this one. They're on time with this one in terms of the actors and writers because they are taking a stand before it gets too late. They know that this is going to be one of the first industries that are majorly impacted by AI, right? By generative AI, especially by all these like they already with the opening of Marvel's Secret Invasion series, all that was done by AI. So they saw that already, right, in motion, and they were like, look, we can no longer wait. So I think we might, this might be, and this is the first time I've kind of talked about this. So, mark it down in history, date it, stamp it. But I think this might be the beginning of what goes on to be a trend, which is a lot of different industries taking a stand against AI. And I think what this will do is number one, it'll cause companies to develop AI related things a lot more secretly, right? Or secretively. I think that, they're going to, every company has to integrate AI in some way. But I think that, as opposed to all these companies announcing it in order to help, investment and boost stock price, I feel like they're going to just say like, maybe nothing and just debut the AI that they're using when they debut it so that they can avoid situations like this, because there's got to be this weird balance that's kept between exciting investors and not depressing current employees. And, all of Hollywood right now is seeing that that's a very delicate balance to hold. So I don't think this will be the end of, AI related strikes and AI related protests. I think these will continue. It's just this is the first industry that it's really happening at, and it's at the forefront. But I think we're going to continue to have more AI related strikes across the board, with people just taking a stand. The thing is, will all companies be as reliant on their current workers as Hollywood is? I don't know, right? So you can't just say, oh, I'm just going to not learn how to use AI or not keep up with AI, and I'm just going to protest, right? When it comes to my company, your company might not care, to be completely honest, right? You might be completely expendable. And at that point, they're like, okay, go ahead and protest till you're purple in the face. We can save a lot more money and make a lot more money using AI. So like there is no guarantee. It's just that is a specific sector where this is something that hits hard, right? When they are protesting, it's a real tough issue with their existing productivity. Now, in terms of tech news on the earnings front, shares of CRM rose 5.6% after hours to $215 after the cloud computing giant reported Q2 results that topped expectations. Continued growth was seen in all of CRM's biggest segments, while guidance was raised for fiscal 2024. I'm a growth CEO, so that's what I like to do. Nice, bro. But I'll tell you now, I'm quite addicted to the bottom line as well. CEO Mark Benioff announced on an earnings call. In terms of artificial intelligence, he said Salesforce is looking at the evolution in a broad way, and you're really going to see it take place over 4 major zones. So CRM is in one of the sectors that we talked about, right? When we talk about other sectors that are going to benefit from AI, we already talked about, we mentioned cloud computing, right? CRM, Datadog, all of those, because you need cloud computing in order to run these huge AI models. So that's kind of like the next thing. At first, it was okay, AI blows up. The company that owns the AI company, right? Microsoft blows up. And then it's like, okay, the company that provides the chips for everyone to do AI, right? That blows up for everyone to train those AI models. And then now, okay, we need the space and the data and the storage. So now all of the cloud companies, are blowing up on the back of this as well. So this is something that we talked about a few weeks ago, and CRM demonstrating that in spades here as they're up 5.6% heading into today. Of course, it's a nice post earnings player to look at. We've got our pre-market high at 230.33. We're like pushing toward that now. So if we break above it and hold above it, we can see continuation. If we open and then we come back down to this 226 area and hold it, right? We peak beneath and fail, right? Peak below and fail, and then we get back above, then that can make for a nice little intraday scalp from 226 all the way back up to a little bit over 230. So, CRM could be something there to pay attention to this morning in terms of like a post earnings play. Set a little alert. All right, nice. And then from there, just, also checking out other tickers like Datadog, right? Other tickers in the same sector that might run, or might push based off of what CRM's results were. So, that could be something to look at as well. Just other cloud computing tickers and saying, okay, these other cloud computing tickers can see, maybe Amazon, right? Amazon might also soak up some bullish sentiment from that as well. So, just keeping an eye on things that are adjacent within the same sector, they might see, that rising tide that lifts all boats from CRM's earnings. In terms of product news, offshoring, onshoring, and nearshoring. So what about a different approach entirely? Apple is reportedly testing 3D printers to make the steel chassis used by some of its upcoming watches. I think that's another game changer right there, right? Because if you can just 3D print them and you can get that, cost of production down across the board, that helps the bottom line. The new approach could potentially make the U.S. tech giant supply chain more efficient, cut the time it would take to build devices, and reduce its environmental impact due to using less material. The work is being done internally by Apple's manufacturing design team. And if the tests on the Apple Watch work out, the company could expand the use of 3D printing to other products in the future, right? I think it'd be pretty crazy if they started 3D printing iPhones. And at that point, it's just like if they keep raising the price and they're 3D printing the iPhone, you just know that they've got you just straight up on a leash, right? If they're still, making the price $1,500 and $2,000 for a freaking phone and they're 3D printing them, insane. The Kool-Aid is strong. But in terms of, this is something that will definitely, I think Apple struggled. They missed on earnings, right? This past time around, they struggled with the Foxconn, factory. Foxconn is a major parts producer for Apple, the components that go into the phones. They're moving from China to India. So it's a lot of stuff happening right now that's just messing up Apple's supply chain. And they're like, look, we can't continue like this, right? I mean, they're a huge company, a huge entity, and they're always looking to streamline, get better, just like we should be, right? Even Apple's looking to get 1% better. They're the biggest, company, trillion-dollar company. They have more free cash flow than some countries, right? They have more money at one point than we did in the U.S. Treasury. They have at Apple, like just free cash sitting there, cash reserves. So, Apple's always looking to get better. They're not complacent. And I think that's an important example of what we should be looking to do, right? Just because things are good now does not mean that you don't take the time to do what you need to do in order to make things good for the future as well, which is super important. So don't just say, oh, because I'm making money trading now, I don't need to worry about, tightening up my charting or figuring out, my position size or this and that and the third, right? You've got to make sure that you're constantly getting better, because just because things are good now does not mean that they're guaranteed good in the future. Now, in terms of today's markets in Asia and Japan, we're up by 0.7%, Hong Kong down 0.5%, China down 0.6%, India down 0.4%, the FTSE in London up 0.1%, Paris down 0.1%, Frankfurt up 0.6%, the Dow up 0.3%, S&P up 0.1%, NASDAQ flat, crude oil up 0.8%, gold down 0.1%, Bitcoin down 0.3%. In terms of today's economic calendar, we got jobless claims at 8:30. And then let's see here at 9:45, we have some stuff. Chicago PMI at 9:45. But yeah, the biggest thing was initial jobless claims. Also, yesterday we got GDP data. So we got GDP data that was worse than expected, which is important in terms of how, the market breaks that down. Obviously negative GDP data is negative, but a positive way that the market could be looking at it is GDP is slowing down. So the Fed is like, okay, GDP is slowing down. It's worse than what we expected it to be. Maybe we can now finally cut interest rates, right? Or not raise at this next meeting. And I think that is what, markets are optimistic about if they end up optimistic to end the week. I think they're saying, okay, hey, the fact that GDP is going down, right? And the jobless numbers are going to be important. Also, the data that we got this morning. But if GDP is going down, then Fed and Powell, right? The Fed and Powell might say, okay, well, now we're starting to see the economy get wrangled in a little bit. Maybe it's time for us to not hike or to cut. I don't know if they're talking about cutting or if they're just saying, okay, we won't hike. Those are very important things, right? Them keeping interest rates where they are and cutting are two completely different things. If they decide to cut, market's going to fly. If they decide to, just not increase rates, then we might just, see whatever the technicals are pushing toward end up playing out uninhibited. Now let me see here. In terms of the rest of the news, also got PCE. Alicia said, yes. Is that today that we got PCE data? Let me see. I was trying to pull this up in the background. Also, as I mentioned before, for some reason, the market is much more pressed over CPI data than PCE. Looks like with PCE data, thank you for that heads up, by the way. Luckily, it's listed right here under jobless claims, which is nice as well. The jobless claims data, 228,000 versus 230,000 previously. The estimate was 235,000. So jobless claims data was better than expected. We expected 235K to report themselves jobless, and it was 228K. So that's good. U.S. continuing jobless claims, actual 1725K versus 1720K previous, estimated 1706. Okay, so it looks like the initial jobless claims were better than expected, and then the continuing jobless claims were worse than expected. So that kind of ends up being like one positive, one negative in terms of sentiment, as in one for the Bulls, one for the Bears. And then U.S. personal spending month over month in July, actual up 0.8% versus 0.5% previous, estimated was 0.7%. So it looks like the personal spending was up higher than what was estimated. PCE price index month over month was right in line with what was expected. Same thing with year over year. So we got PCE data that is right in line with what was expected. Inflation data that was right in line with what was expected. U.S. short-term interest rate futures up slightly after inflation data as traders stick to view for a Fed hold on rates. U.S. stock index futures extend gains slightly after July PCE data. So, yeah, basically it's looking like what is priced in now and what the expectation is just a hold on rates. And it looks like the data this morning didn't really change that outlook at all. With PCE data kind of falling in line with what was expected. So not too fireworks of data, but important to keep an eye on, right? You want to make sure that you've got that on your calendar. So great catch by Alicia. Astute as always. You want to make sure that you're aware of that. Even if the data does come in line with expectations, because it's good practice. You want to, for in the future, if it doesn't, and there's, some big upset or some big miss in data, then you know why the market is doing what it's doing. In terms of what else is happening, we can finish up and close things out here with our rapid fire bullet point rundown. So Federal Reserve quietly issues warnings to regional banks. I think that's important, right? This continuous kind of bank chatter and all this is just like, man, we can't escape this regional bank issue, and there might be more banks that are in trouble than we know of. UBS reports mega profits skewed by Credit Suisse takeover. That was one thing that was really big overnight, was UBS, reporting kind of earnings overseas, and that buoying things in terms of overseas markets, even though it doesn't look like it held too much since London and everything else isn't up very much right now. And it's really only Frankfurt that's up. Everything else is either flat or red. In terms of Economy Watch, U.S. Q2 GDP revised down to 2.1% from 2.4. So it looks like the GDP data that we got this time around, right? Our estimates were higher than expected. So now we've revised them down lower for next quarter which is important when we think about the expectations heading into it, because I don't think we missed it by a tremendous amount, and they lowered the expectation by 0.3%, which is significant when you're talking about 2%, 2.1 versus 2.4. So they're revising those estimates so that it's easier to meet next time. We have GDP data, and also just because the estimates were off this time. Visa and MasterCard, ticker V and then MA, said to be planning credit card fee hikes. Cannabis Watch DEA may reclassify drug as less risky. U.S. expands AI chip export curbs to some Middle East countries. So it looks like, they're not. The AI is the big thing, and it's got so many different applications, and so many of them are just nefarious. So I think it is important to curb who has the ability. It's like at this point, it is equivalent to kind of like nuclear power. It's like who has, you have to limit the ability of certain countries to have nuclear warhead capabilities, right? It's the same thing now with AI, because they can reap that crazy of destruction when kind of let free within society. CrowdStrike, ticker CRWD, in chart, subscription revenue, ARR expand. Baidu, ticker BIDU, among first companies in China to get nod for AI models. On the move, Palantir rides the latest wave of AI euphoria. And then is Umbrella, ticker AMBA, a takeover candidate amid share price plunge? But that'll wrap us up, put a bow on it, and take us out here for the last pre-market prep session of August. What the heck happened to the time, guys? I don't understand. Time is just flying by. Throw a 4 in the chat if time is flying by for you. It feels like that for me. I mean, August came and went, and it'll be, end of summer soon enough, and then we got fall coming up. So I'm excited, though. I love fall. Like I said, great fashion. You get to layer. You get to, really show off the style. So I'm excited to get into fall, but another month down, I'm not mad at what time flies by, because I know that each and every day I'm putting forth the effort to get a bit better. You can feel better about time flying by when you know that each day I'm reading a little bit, I'm studying a little bit, I'm learning a little bit, right? I'm applying the things that I'm learning. I'm not just learning things and saying, okay, cool, I learned it, let me now go to sleep, right? I'm taking that and I'm applying it to what I do, to my craft, to my business, whether it's creating content, being a better employee, being a better manager, whatever you're doing, right? Investing in yourself is key, so that even when time flies, you don't have to feel bad about it, because that's you getting in an incubation chamber, right? And coming out a better person on the end of that year. So I'll wrap it up there, right? Excited for everything we have going on for the rest of this week, right? The close that we have going on this week will be very important in terms of the weekly close. If we don't get, that weekly close right now, we pushed above it. But if we don't get that weekly close above 449.34, we can head right back down. That's on SPY for that next leg down over the course of the next few weeks. So that'll be important. That's what we're popping the popcorn and watching for. As of right now, we have stocks with bullish sentiment. They're pushing, they're chopping and pushing, right? Chopping and pushing. We got a lot of chop yesterday. And we'll see, kind of in the end of the week, this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of this price action, right? And seeing, okay, do we continue to make our way up, right? We've already had some fake outs on a number of different tickers, or do we start to see that weakness manifest and the rocket turns over, right? And then we start to dip. Only time will tell, but we will be prepared for both in order to utilize both for our own financial gain. So that's actually the last pre-market prep of the week. I'm out of town on a flight tomorrow. So this is the last time I get to see you guys, but much love to each and every person. I will see you in September. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.